Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video essay. I'm your host, JB Westfall, and today we're going to be critiquing Cowboy Bebop by Riley James. In the business of making media, every creative idea needs more than vision. It needs structure, planning, and resource management. For this project, we treated the process like a professional production, even though we operated entirely independently. Filming took place in Missoula, Montana, across a 4-day window from May 7th through May 10th. We built a tight production schedule: travel, creative prep, one full shoot day, and post-production work immediately after. Despite the scope, our total expenses, including plane tickets, gas, and props, stayed under $1,000, proving that high-level storytelling doesn't always need to be with a massive budget. Our production setup was simple but intentional. Camera A was a Sony FS5 with an 18 to 105mm f4 G Master lens. Camera B was something smaller, a Sony A6300 paired with a 50mm Viltrox f2.8 to give us that shallow depth of field. We supported both with a DJI Mini 2 drone for those aerial shots and a DJI RS4 mini gimbal that we threw that Sony A6300 on, and a tripod for the larger camera. This small-scale gear list allowed flexibility while maintaining a cinematic aesthetic. On the audio and music side, Riley James handled the entire soundtrack independently. Every beat, vocal, and mix was produced, recorded, and mastered in his home studio using Ableton Live. The track featured in this project comes from his EP he produced entirely on his own, showcasing how independent musicians can function as both artists and producers under one creative roof. Post-production was completed in DaVinci Resolve Studio, where I handled editing and color grading. We used film emulation to achieve that rich 35mm inspired look, balancing digital sharpness with organic grain and texture. This not only enhanced the visual style, but connected the aesthetic to the story's tone. From a business perspective, this project represents the modern reality of media creation. Lean budgets, small crews, and full creative control. It's proof that with planning, teamwork, and the right tools, independent creators can operate with the same professionalism and efficiency as major studios, just with more passion behind every frame. Now, enough with the business of making media. Now let's talk about narrative. I'm gonna have my buddy Diego discuss a little bit about what Cowboy Bebop is about and why the message is so deep.
The way Cowboy Bebop uses the narrative cycle is by beginning with exposition, where he describes his youth and the parental conflicts that marred them. This leads into the climax, where he asks, crying to his mother, asking why she is crying, and the finale. There are quite a few conventions consistent within the music video genre that can be seen here. One of these is the use of a restricted narrator around the context of the video, James's experiences growing up. Also, we get an immensely subjective perspective of his psyche, driving us forward into the climax and the concluding shots of the music video. Overall, it did violate the expectations of a music video, specifically one made for a hip-hop song. It consists of a real tragedy and/or experience done in a metaphorical way, with visuals supporting lyrics as seen at 2:52.
Thank you so much, Diego, for giving us that breakdown on the narrative form of Cowboy Bebop. Now I'm going to pass it to my guy Zach, and he's going to talk about the mise en scène of Cowboy Bebop.
In the music video for Cowboy Bebop by Riley James, it depicts a man with dreadlocks who is smoking a cigarette, going insane inside of an abandoned warehouse. There is also this feeling of isolation and mental deterioration that goes across the passage of time, given the contrasting lights as it shifts between night and day. In the video of the man going insane, he is also shown talking to himself, and it's like seeing himself in the reflection of a mirror, and it shows two versions of the same person wearing completely different outfits. The version of the man in the t-shirt is the real person, while the reflection is a version of himself wearing a sweater as the version he sees himself as. Lastly, the paint is dripping as a means of letting go of that isolation, or something else. Maybe it is meant to be a slow unburdening. The overall mise-en-scène in the music video depicts psychological isolation and self-confrontation. It evokes the feeling of trying to let go of that isolation.
Zach, I completely agree with you on the breakdown of the mise-en-scène of this video, and then kind of the analysis on the isolation. I just think that is so on point with what Riley was going for, but also what I was going for. Let's take a listen to an interview that I did about Cowboy Bebop and where the direction I was taking it as a director.
And I wanted to kind of feel like almost a very dark Hallmark movie. That's kind of what my aesthetic was I was going for. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, really dark Hallmark movie. Yes, that is true. Moving on from mise-en-scène, we're going to move into color, narrated by Cody.
In Cowboy Bebop, color is used not just decoratively, but emotionally and narratively. In many scenes, there is a strong contrast between cool blues and warmer tones. Blue tends to dominate in moments of introspection, loneliness, or tension. It gives a tense distance, melancholy, and calm restraint, which is fitting for Spike's troubled inner world. When the music crescendos or conflict peaks, warmer accents, especially reds and golds, are used to punctuate energy, danger, or emotional intensity. This shifting palette helps to cue the viewer's feelings subtly, calm to agitation, reflection to action. In certain sequences, the lighting is saturated or stylized, so that characters nearly dissolve into their environments. This blurring effect underscores themes of identity, memory, and alienation. The way a face or objects half in shadow or tinted by colored light suggests ambiguity. Morality, memory, motive are never fully in the light. In short, color is a silent storyteller here, guiding mood and subtext, coloring emotional beats almost as much as the edits and music do.
And that brings us to our last topic of discussion today, and that is going to be framing by Fernando.
Cowboy Bebop utilized a lot of clever framing techniques that allowed for the message of the song to be illustrated in an effective manner. Some of the ways that framing was utilized to evoke emotion was through the usage of close-ups, specifically in the scenes such as the one where he was on the ground with that green tint. The first time that we see that shot, I believe it was a vignette that was utilized, and it just increased that feeling of isolation, loneliness that the character was feeling. And other times, such as the shot that we see of him in front of the mirror, such as like 52 seconds and 1 minute and 32 seconds, the outside light being used to light the subject, you can kind of make out that he's in a room, and the way the camera was backed away from the subject, it kind of just increases that he was like in a room, big room, by himself, just being lit by the outside light, creating this sense of isolation, creating a sense of loneliness. And to add on to it, like the environment, the way that was used to showcase the meaning, as we saw throughout the entire video, we see nature outside, but he was inside. And I feel like it was no coincidence that the window looked very closely to jail cell bars. And I felt like with the framing of having nature being outside of those windows, it kind of felt like he was in a jail. And since we saw pretty much the entire video in the warehouse slash the window kind of signifies the prison that he was stuck on mentally. It was a form of visually showcasing the struggle to the viewers that he was facing. And that's why I felt like at the end, when he started to walk away from the warehouse, it felt very powerful, because it was, in a sense, he kind of regained the power that he had lost, regained that self-reflection that he needed. And that moment at the end was very powerful, as coming like a full circle moment for him in terms of evolution. And as we saw throughout the entire project, the evolution of our character was kind of done, the method of framing techniques. If you pay attention, most of the shots were like close-ups, tracking shots. There was a lot of movement with the camera, and specifically just followed the subject. And I felt like at the end, when the camera stayed in place and watched him walk away from a low angle, it again reinforced the idea of the power that he regained. He finally completed his journey of self-reflection, and in the end, with that shot, it just showcased the full complete evolution that we witnessed throughout the entire video.